we've asked, and some of you haven't asked, but we've gotten from different places, that we thought would be helpful if these people with years and years and years of experience would answer. So we don't have time to have everybody ask them directly. That's why we had you guys fill out a form and turn in those of you who wanted to. And so we're going to start with some of those that you guys will mix some of them up. Anyway, so yeah, I guess that's. I'll ask the question and I'll direct them to you guys, and you guys can decide whether to answer them or pass them on to somebody else. Okay, so actually this question is kind of, I'm going to ask Brian first. So this question is from Ilani Smythe, I think that I said that right. How does practice play into church musicians' life, and what does scheduled practice look like as far as scales and more classical music to help the church musician? Basically, how often or what should be practiced?
There isn't any difference between practicing for church and practicing for anything else. You're practicing to be the best that you possibly can be. You're practicing in church music if you want to go that route for the glory of the Lord. You want to do at least as good as you would in a secular environment, in a sacred environment. So to say, well, I'll only practice these scales or only practice for this long because it's just church music is a really bad attitude. I'll smile after I said that. To excuse lack of practice on the basis of it's just for the church and it's not for a professional environment is really a bad attitude. We talked about the other day about who's our audience. You're not doing this for the people, you're doing it for God. What's God's standard? God's standard is perfection. Are any of us going to be perfect? No. Can we do the best we possibly can with the skills that God's given us? Yes.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, we were talking about setting up a time. I actually turned away someone recently because they were completely unrehearsed. And we're supposed to be representing the Lord or leading someone else in a song that we don't know. That's not part of the leading. So yeah, I said, sorry, you can't take part with this. I had to dismiss them, even though they were scheduled to sing with us and whatnot. Yeah, it was quite frustrating. I actually command that those that are involved in our group come prepared, and then we still have our rehearsal time. And that's unfortunately what happened. And unfortunately, it's what you have to do in order to maintain it.
That's really good. I remember I was at one music conference and Matt Lynch was speaking. You may have heard him say this way, but he just said, "Why do we think we should practice? Or we think that much of ourselves, or what?" You know, and it struck me because sometimes, honestly, I've been lax at that. I'll sit down and play, and I don't really practice what I should be. You know? And maybe it's a subject for that, so I can speak to that from experience. This question I'm going to direct mostly to Faye, but all of you, if any of you want to answer it, I know she had come up with some notes on this. What does it mean to you in the scriptures where we read to worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness? It's in 1 Chronicles 16:29, 2 Chronicles 20:21, Psalms 29:2, Psalms 96:9.
I just printed off, when he sent the question to us ahead of time, I printed off some different renderings of that verse, and the beauty of holiness means the splendor of holiness in holy attire. And I don't think this is just on our clothing here. Really a lot of the different translations of that, but that's what it is. I think it's a matter of coming before God prepared and in awe. You know, we're worshiping the King of Kings. It's not a matter of just coming casually. That doesn't mean that we can't wear jeans or whatever. You know, it's not about, that's not the attire. I don't believe that this is talking about. I think it's referring to something different.
So, like in practicals, for our music, when I guess you could say we're thinking about being in the presence of that and being in awe of the Lord.
It's serious.
Yeah.
It's important.
It's not just a performance. It's not just a little thing we do, a little row we do.
Right.
Anybody else have any thoughts? Okay, so Brian or Jim, maybe you can answer this. Any thoughts or tips on teaching or encouraging the congregation to sing parts? Oh, I'm going to take this one.
You can always stop a hymn and say, let's have all men sing the men's part and all women sing the women's part. The one that came to mind was Wonderful Grace of Jesus. Wonderful, the matchless grace of Jesus. And all the guys are singing this great part, and the girls are going, la, 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 because they don't know what's going on. So you just stop and you let them hear what they're supposed to be singing. Even if all the women sing one part and all the guys sing one part, it's fine. But it just adds a lot to the hymn to have those parts going on and to hear all that. And it doesn't, you don't have to stop and go, okay, sopranos sing this pitch. And it's just a matter of stopping for a moment, even, and letting them know that there are parts and that's a lot of fun to do that.
Yeah, I think I actually offered that a little bit a couple of nights ago. I said, if you do know this song, sing along. Now let's add the parts. We are welcome to do that. Those that lead, to lead the congregation. Now and like Brian was saying too, if you want to stop your worship part of the songs, and you just stop. We were going through that again with our leading class, to go ahead and teach them the song, and then for them to come along. Yeah.
All right, that's good. Thank you. Let's go on to this question here. How can we apply Philippians 4:8 to our ministry in music? Philippians 4:8 says, "Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things." And it's kind of a filter that we should probably run everything through, it sounds like. So in terms of music and our ministry, how can we apply that? And the second half of that question, you might address, it says whatsoever things are lovely, and it sounds like we should just have lovely, happy, joyful music, but what about sad, melancholy music as well? Is there a place for that? Some people think we should only have that, Any thoughts on that?
I think there's absolutely a place for both. Yeah, and I think we've sort of proven that just over the last 2-3 days. Yeah. What's the congregation that only does psalms? Psalms.
Some Presbyterian groups and some Church of Christ. No, I don't know. Church of Christ is instrumental, but I'm not sure.
I thought I heard when they just do that, and that doesn't mean that they're wrong, of course. Heck, we did the La Rosa, we did some of the sad minor keys. We were talking about that. Doesn't make it wrong, but it's whatever things are. It's keeping the Lord in the forefront of our minds and setting our lives apart.
But the gospel is just kind of the whole of everything, and the gospel has sorrow in it. The gospel has great joy in it, and so I think our music can reflect that whole gamut. And I know something that Brian said back when we were discussing these questions is that this Philippians 4:8 is really a focus on Christ, right? What you said. So just keeping the message of Christ central, whatever that looks like.
We also talked about the aspect of what is the message for that day? What is the pastor teaching about that day? Because the Bible is not just a happy place. And the Bible is full of joy. But there are other aspects of who God is that are just joy. And so if the pastor is teaching on a subject, the hymn should match that subject. And the hymn text may be in a minor key. That doesn't mean it can't be used because it's not major. So it's more a matter of not the feeling of the music, but rather the text of the hymn that's important.
Actually, just to bounce off of that, in our Messianic congregation, have you heard of Yom HaShoah? Okay, it's a very morose day. Yom HaShoah is the day of remembrance of what happened through Hitler's time and the 6-7 million Jews that were killed. So we have almost no music, and if anything, it's a recreation, and it is gripping. Yom Kippur, is that one familiar? And that's the Day of Atonement, and usually you go into remembrance, as opposed to the Yom Teruah, the blowing of the trumpets, Rosh Hashanah, where it's, what we're looking forward to. So anyway, yeah, that's the difference there.
Today we have spectator worship, in part because worship leaders have made it into a show and a performance to entertain and draw in outsiders, but partly because congregations become lazy and don't bring something to the table. In the scriptures it says we're supposed to all bring something, a song, a hymn, a prophecy, something. And we kind of just, church in general, we come and we sit and listen to the message and, bring something, we get spoon-fed or something, But as worship leaders, some of us have encouraged that. And so how can we encourage congregations to participate rather than just be spectators?
I think that's the conductor's fault. No, actually, that in true words is I think the part of the worship leader. It's part of their fault because they need to set their hearts right, and it's not the part of the congregation. If it's been made the spectators because they've set their heart. We were talking about that. They set their heart on, it's going to be about me today, right?
It goes back to who's our audience. There's a number of people and all of you is there is no room for non-participation. But we are all in a setting, in fellowship, in a setting in a congregational setting. We're calling you not to forsake the fellowship. And so, as we look at it, of course we want to praise Him. And I want people to do is sing. Is that praising God? You never seen that? Never dance? It is a participatory sport. We are to participate.
That's good. There's a follow-up to that, and it's kind of rhetorical, but worship leaders prepare ahead of time, or should, right? And we bring this question out because it's come up because we're all worship leaders in different ways. Some of us maybe we playing a little bit, or we stand up front with what Ryan does, or maybe we lead with our voice. We're leading the congregation in worshiping the Lord. And so that's why we bring this question up. But we should prepare ahead of time. How can we also encourage congregations to do this as well? What about opening up and allowing them to choose some songs or something that they want to bring to the table in worship? Sometimes it's become so, I don't know, sometimes maybe one can't do that in church or something, but if you have the opportunity, that's something, yeah.
I think it gets a little difficult if you just open it up and let other people select, because they may not have the same insight into what the pastor's preaching on or whatever, and you want to have unity of your thought and service. But I think, I know some congregations who actually publish their things ahead of time. If you're online, you can go in, and if you don't know them well, you can find them on YouTube and rehearse them. You can prepare your heart. It's kind of an interesting concept. That's just one way that some people do that. But I think the worship leader can be very sensitive to what people would like to suggest, but then it's really the responsibility of whoever has been appointed to do that by the congregation congregation or by the elders or deacons to direct that part of worship just like the pastor directs the preaching. And I think it's a more effective ministry that way. If it's planned, you can have favorites nights, and you can have, and a lot of the state issues are offertories and all kinds of things like that, but there needs to be some cohesiveness.
But you said exactly where I was going to go with that, and that is midweek service. You can have a hymn sing, or you can have a special service on a Sunday night or something. There are any day, have a inspiration, have a time of people just saying, I really like to do this hymn. And that's the whole, that's the purpose of that particular service. And then there is no continuity of thought, maybe, other than we're just going to praise God with hymns, with music. It's kind of what we're doing tonight. Right? Unless there's some kind of continuity of thought that I didn't know about.
No, that is very much what we're going to do tonight. It'll be slightly different, but it'll be pretty much excellent. So let's take these questions for you. Can you address the theory that if the piano isn't loud, the congregation won't sing out? I mean, I know I've certainly experienced this to some extent where like I might keep back going off and just stop saying like don't keep singing, but I just feel like the music calls to, or the text calls for just less.
Loud doesn't always equal supportive, and I think that we pianists need to figure out ways to be supportive at different volumes. And even with louds, and my classes heard a lot about this week, you don't keep a loud section constant or else it becomes very harsh. At one of the churches where we served, the orchestra sat right kind of around where the piano was, and I had the trumpets right behind me. And I'm sure I lost some hearing there, but if they didn't, even the trumpets, if they didn't know how to rise and fall with the line, whoa. So learn to rise and fall and be musical in the loud sections, reserving the loudest points or the peak points in the text, but then learn how to be supported even when you're softer. And that's a matter of touch and control, but confidence is part of it. Confidence does not equal volume.
I'm just going to touch on, that was really good things. Sorry, I didn't get it.
In fact, we're just looking at volume, at the amount of sound one produces. A lot of times, doing something quietly is a much larger impact than doing something loud. And it's kind of weird, because I was not what you said.
I think those of you who are in phase class probably got some of that today too. There's some excellent quotes from well-known musicians about how silence works, and that pushing the silence or something else I want to touch on, and I appreciate Jim touched on this yesterday and went into it quite a bit. But there's a question somebody asked, what is worship? Worship is not just us making music. There's so much more to it. So maybe one of you could just briefly, is worship limited to Sunday morning service and maybe personal quiet time, or is it also demonstrated in showing patience with our family and being kind to an annoying neighbor, taking time to bless a stranger?
Some people are going,
Say one thing about that. We are worshiping all the time, something. And I can worship at the mall, out there shopping. I mean, really, food, I worship something all the time. And if I worship God, that's going to come out not only when I'm up here or whatever, it's going to come out when preparing.
Yeah, I would kind of like to touch on that from last night's message too. The biblical sort of first church, if you will, and our we're worship like face that, the different ways. I mean, it's kind of been our theme for this whole weekend. Like Psalm 51, we should prepare our hearts constantly. And yeah, it should be in every aspect, absolutely.
Yeah, and Psalm 51, you said this last night, it said the broken and contrite heart will not despise. I mean, he appreciates that. It's maybe more than us making loud noises at the piano or whatever. I mean, it's definitely important to have a contrite heart when we're in that position. So, and this is kind of to everybody. This is, we apologize, we didn't get to everybody's questions. Some seem more specific to a specific class. We're trying to get stuff that pertains to everybody here that will be beneficial to all. When you are scheduled to play or sing or conduct a song, and you realize pride or self-focus has crept in, what steps do you take to get your heart in the right place, especially if you only have a few minutes? What if you feel you should step down for that song until you're ready, but there's no fulfillment?
You should just step on out. That's it. You're done. Wash it out. I hope that's bad advice. Okay, good confirmation. No, if that's truly where it's gonna kind of creep in, then obviously those are gonna be just our thoughts. The devil is pressing on our heart that exactly what I just said. No, you should just walk on out. You're done. If you just have a few minutes, like this question says, why not just open up the Word? Because it's by the washing of the Word that we're made new. And it's just getting into our one-on-one relationship with the Lord to bring us back. Now, does that mean our nerves are going to go away? No. And we were talking about that. We should use that and be able to keep on our toes about things, but don't forsake it.
But what Jim said when we were talking about these was, you made a commitment to do it. If you just walk out when you were supposed to be doing it, you just broke your commitment. That's not right. Okay, so your attitude may not be correct right then. Get a word not over afterwards, correct your attitude. If you can't correct it right now, respond. You have to correct it. You made a commitment for it.
Yeah, so all of this kind of is leading toward we are called to a higher standard. We are as believers. My mom used to often say, others may, you may not. It's kind of the way it is. It doesn't mean we don't have freedom in Christ. The freedom in Christ is that we're free from bondages, so we don't have to be under that bondage anymore. But also, we've got to take the flesh, the works of the flesh. And that's important for us as leaders. If you're in that position, leadership, it's important to maintain and be there all the time. I remember just one time when there was something in my life that wasn't right, and I was asked to play an offertory, and I felt exactly like what this, it's like, I'm supposed to play this, I made a commitment to do it. What am I going to do? So I just had to repent before the Lord quietly, like Jim said, you can do that in 20 or 30 seconds sometimes. It's admitting our faults. And the Lord put on my heart a song, Whiter Than Snow. I don't know how many of you know it. And several people came up afterwards and said how it was a blessing. It was just really, it was my own worship to the Lord. It was like, Lord, I don't deserve this. If you wash me, Whiter Than Snow. It's interesting. Times 13, I was like, I don't feel like I should be here, but and what would you recommend for a musician who's asked to do a song with which they don't agree? Is there a tactful way to decline without causing dissension? If the music is planned ahead of time, that's easier, but what if it's like or something for whatever reason? This song is happening, whatever.
In a ministry that we've served in, that we've had that situation, and it happened that this gal is someone that kind of works under me, and so I have built communication, this is from the other side of it, but I have built communication with her so that we can talk about these things ahead of time. Of course, with the Sings Operation, I probably would put her on the schedule for that. That I don't think she would want to be on the schedule for that because she would be unsure of what she has to play. But I think we need to honor one another's convictions and consciences about these things, but work together in unity in the church. And if you're the person that is troubled by a particular kind of song or whatever, then I think you build that communication also with the leadership that's over you. Now, if it's the pastor that's asking you to do things, you work that out with the pastor or the pastor of your congregation. But it goes back to communication and loving those that are in fellowship with you and talking about differences, but not letting them become a stumbling block to one another.
Jim, you mentioned that you had to dismiss somebody one time. How did you do that graciously without being, how did you handle that?
That's a good question. I mean, for me, I'm not very confrontational when it comes to that. But with my own nerves, I literally just said those words, you know. And I guess we kind of do that in our minds, you know. And hopefully, we're talking with the Lord, give us the right words to say. And I said it in humility, if I can admit that, you know. I appreciate you. I'm so glad that you came, but I'm sorry. Just you know, I mean, it was just about to that effect, you know. And gosh, it is. It's hard. It's like spanking your kids. I mean, I don't really want to do this. My wife might be back there laughing, but you know. But I mean, you know, hopefully it should be that way. Hopefully it's not someone you despise. I mean, you know, out of here.
Boy,
you know.
calling you out. Now's the opportunity.
And so.
Yeah, I was just thinking that there's so much division already, and in music particularly, we have whole divisive stuff, and people, and sometimes there's times when we have to say things that we don't, but if you're a worship leader, that's your job to me is being that, and really, and why, and the reason is so that the congregation worship people are not going, oh, okay, finish quick, or something, you know.
Usually we go off and it makes us no fit.
I think so. I mean, we've probably all been there where we haven't clapped because it was over, not because it was, you know.
We have a young man in our congregation who loves the Lord, and he's actually stepping into some positions of ministry through the church. He's a really good guy. But he doesn't sing very well. As long as he has somebody literally plunking the notes out for him, he can stay on. Yeah, she has a nice voice, but he got up one time and sang, and it was like, it was just, how soon you can get done. Well, we discovered if we had a violinist play with him, it was giving him the pitches, and it was really easy to learn. But it was just, it's fun. She started playing, and he could sing, and it worked really well. And he's being blessed by the fact that he can minister, and people are being blessed by the fact that he's singing. And it's easy for the violinist to do that. So there's always ways to work around that. The hard thing is when it's in the immediate, when it's now, and you have to figure out a way to correct it. And I think you saying, you had to dismiss that individual, but it was done in humility. To get angry wouldn't have solved any problems, but to do it in humility means that person's going to feel, okay, I blew it. But I want to correct that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have Jones.
Appreciate that, yeah. There's a lot of, we're all about different sticky situations sometimes, so I appreciate the answer. Well, that's just about wraps up the question we've got. There's one more thing I'd like you to briefly address, and that is, we got a few more minutes, but not much. Can you talk about your thoughts on what does it mean to you to bring the sacrifice of praise to the gospel of God? We sing about that. We bring the sacrifice of praise. What are we talking about? What is that? I mean, we sing a lot of words without really thinking about them. Yeah,
in Hebrews a bit that it's also a psalm that we touched on with David, because he says you don't want a sacrifice. You know, the praises of the Lord are a broken and contrite heart. Kind of a reiteration on that, but sacrifices of praise. Who's worthy of our praise?
Yeah.
Our Father, of course.
And somewhere I think it talks about the sacrifice of influence. Yeah, I think 13. Appreciate that. Thank you guys. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate you guys drawing your years of experience and sharing with others. And we're not going to make the same mistakes some of us have made over the years. So that's the purpose of this. And we'll be going into our groups, our individual sessions now. So we'll need somebody to actually set up the chair back here for the camera. And then at I think it's 4 to 5:30. We have our last practice where we will be honing the songs that we're working on, and we'll be deciding which ones we're going to actually do, because we don't want to bring stuff that's half-baked, if that's the way it's going to be. So if you have a chance and you can, work on your parts, and let's see that.
Can I just interject just one thing? I have to go, for those of you that don't know, I'm not going to be here this evening. I have to leave at about 3:30, 3:45. But if I don't get a chance to say goodbye, it has been such a pleasure. It's been a pleasure, Faye. It's been a pleasure.
So you guys are dismissed to your individual sessions. Once you're